Turn, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. Hello, this is Stefani Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director, and here is another time that we're doing a Reunion Roadmap interview, and our guests are from up north. Am I correct on that?
Why, yes, Stefania. In fact, from your old stomping grounds, northern Wisconsin.
Yes.
We have Barb Klika with her husband Bob. They are the under-shepherds of Set Apart Ministries in a little town about 85 miles north of Green Bay. The reason that we have them on is, first of all, being congregational leaders for 19 years gives them some experience and a voice to share about what it's like to lead a Hebraic fellowship, what it's like to be part of building a community. But there's another thing that Barb brings to the table is her professional career in the mental health field, alcohol and drug abuse, and, oh, by the way, in counseling people and helping deliver them out of satanic ritual abuse and occultic practices.
Yes.
Now, when on Reunion Roadmap have we talked about that before?
We've been able to touch a little bit, but not to the extent we're going to be hearing on the series of these interviews.
Correct. And it is another series. In fact, the interview itself is going to take us 5 shows to get through. So there's a lot here. Barb and Bob start off telling their testimonies, and then Barb will continue with how the Lord used the many different things in their lives over the last 30 or 40 years to bring them to this point. So there's a lot here. You'll hear stuff about the unseen spiritual realm over these 5 interview segments that may be unfamiliar to our listeners, but it is very real, it is very important, and it is something I believe, Stefania, that the Lord is highlighting to the body now because we need it.
Yes.
So we will do that, and then we also have some new music from Deborah Pagel, a part of the congregation there in Set Apart Ministries. We'll listen to Solomon Lopez, and we'll also listen to a midrash from our elders once again. So without further ado, let's head north to the woods of northern Wisconsin and meet Barb and Bob Klika. Well, welcome to another interview. This time, we are going to Silver Cliff, Wisconsin, a little town about 85 miles north of Green Bay. And we're going to visit with Barb and Bob Klika of Set Apart Ministries. Barb and Bob, welcome to the Reunion Roadmap.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
You've got quite an interesting story of how you came into ministry, but there's a whole lot more to that, as in your professional background, your faith background. Barb, how would you describe what you do now?
I don't know if that's possible, really. I guess the shorthand way to put it is we are a small home fellowship, but we're more than that. We are a messianic equipping ministry. It began because of my work with satanic ritual abuse survivors for several decades and the need to find a way to be of help to them because many of them couldn't function in a regular church setting. And they just had too many things that triggered them and caused emotional outbursts and reactions. So that's kind of where it began. The very first year, we had already been studying, my husband Bob and I and my prayer partner Janelle had already been studying from a Hebraic perspective. And we understood that if we're going to be helping people come out of pagan practices, it would probably be a good idea if we were out of pagan practices too. So it was less of a us and them and more of a we right away. And when I look at our early materials for that, I know that I was using the metaphor of a wall very often, that we needed to have a walled community, as in scripture, you know, that a community without walls, a city without walls was not highly regarded. You needed to have that protection and that border. So that's where we started. And it's now 19 years later. We're in our 20th year. And I have the home fellowship and well-developed website with lots of things we're writing. I've been writing. Other people in our group have written. We really believe that Yahweh has been teaching us a lot about maturity and restoration and about how to help people function in assemblies like this. Because I've heard so many troubles of people all across the country, having talked with a lot of leadership people about the instability and the kind of things that go on in fellowships. We have understood for a long time that these are things we've been taught in the community, and we've been waiting for his timing to share what those things we've been taught are all about.
I'm sure our listeners have already picked up on what you said, satanic ritual abuse, because that enters into the realm of spiritual warfare, and it's something that's unfamiliar for the most part with people in this Messianic Torah awakening movement. So you're bringing something new, something essential to the toolbox or the arsenal, so to speak, of the saints. And I guess the next question is, how did you get there? How did you come to understand occultic activity, and this particularly the satanic ritual abuse and everything that's involved with it? Maybe we should begin with, what's your faith background?
Well, it's no surprise that people in the Hebrew roots or Messianic movement are surprised about this, because people in traditional Christianity are just as surprised. And whenever I have talked about it here in northeastern Wisconsin, way back in the late 80s and early 90s, people were just as shocked then as they are now. They just, you don't see it in the day-to-day fabric of your life unless you have the eyes to look for it. So when you said that maybe we would start with some little background here, I started thinking back about, now how would I even describe that? Because for a lot of years I just said, Lord, why would you ask a girl from Appleton to do this? Because I grew up Lutheran. I didn't know anything about this kind of stuff. Bob is an ex-Roman Catholic seminarian, so he didn't know anything about this kind of stuff at all. As I look back, all I can say is I do see lots of things that he was allowing to happen throughout my whole life that have prepared me to do what I'm doing now, to be an under shepherd with a fellowship, and to be aware of how we need to function in Messiah so that the evil one doesn't have an open door.
I think that's the rock bottom reason why this is important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bob, this is also an interesting thing. Barb says you were a Roman Catholic seminarian. Were you studying for the priesthood?
Yes, I was. And then after about 4 years, I got very disillusioned because a lot of what they said wasn't what they did. I stayed Roman Catholic for many, many, many years. But then maybe 25 years ago,
It was 96.
I went through the instruction and joined Barb at the Missouri Synod Church. And then after a while, I became disillusioned there, and we tried 2 or 3 other flavors. And
We were already studying from a Hebraic perspective at that point, beginning.
we had just beginning. She had been attending a Shabbat Midrash. A Jewish gentleman in the area had started a program for the homeschoolers, because we have a very strong homeschooling association in Green Bay. Barb had been attending that, and after a period of time, she said, "You got to come and listen to this guy." So, okay, I went, I listened, and you had to listen very closely because the guy had a speech impediment. So you had to pay attention to what he was saying in order to know what he was saying. And I sat there with my arms crossed, hey, I'm Roman Catholic. You can't tell me anything. And after about 3 weeks of that, I went, that's what I've been looking for. That's what I've been searching for. Why are we doing what we do? And where did it get distorted? And after that, then we were off and running.
Yeah. Essentially, that is how the transition happened. Exactly. Yeah. Because we thought Lutheran and Catholic were very, very different. When we got married, both of our families were afraid one of us would turn, and now none of them know what to do with us. They don't understand where we are at all. For me, growing up Lutheran, I was born in Florida. My mom married the boy next door who'd gone off to the Navy. It was the second of 3 marriages for him. They were divorced when I was just 1, and my mother came back to Wisconsin and remarried. So as I was thinking about this, so many things that have happened that are just little pieces that have prepared me for what came later. That was one of them, is that I was known by my legal name at school, but I was known by the family name at church. So it was kind of like 2 different people, but represented in one. I never did see my biological father again until our daughter was 7. And I contacted him one more time trying, and we were able to go down to Florida and connect with him. I was thinking about that process. I was 4, and I remember being in the Lutheran school, Sunday school room, knowing that Jesus was real. And I think that's as much as I could say for it. I knew he was real. I didn't know a lot, obviously. Vacation Bible school. A lot of people with traditional Christian background were involved with that at one time or another. I don't think, Bob, you ever were. They didn't.
No, we had catechism.
You had catechism, right? Yeah. So in VBS, in those days, we would meet for, like a week or 2 week program, 3 hours a day. And I remember one of those years, and I'm not sure, it must have been about 4th grade, they took the hymn, Take My Life, and they went one verse every day. And I remember that was really significant, and I knew that I was singing all of that, and I was serious. Yes, take my life and let it be. But then, of course, after that, I'm sure, it didn't stay in the top of my mind, but God knew. I think that was his transacting business with me. Then shortly after that, when I was about 9, I had one of many experiences of severe illness and potential death. I was supposed to have my tonsils out, so they gave me some sulfa to tide me over till Christmas vacation. But what happened is it turned out I'm quite deathly allergic to sulfa. So I was in the hospital for a week with near renal failure. And it was my mom who figured it out, that what was going on. At that age, I don't think I really understood the severity of it. I knew that people were smiling and being very nice to me. I didn't really quite know why. One of the reactions was to have Stevens-Johnson's rash, and all my fingernails died. So when I got back to school, I was like the talk of the class because they were watching my dead fingernails grow off as the new ones were growing underneath. It was a strange kind of thing. Not exactly the kind of notoriety you would look for. And so years later, I look back and realize, yes, that was a life-threatening illness. I didn't really know it at the moment, but it was. Then later, I jumped to confirmation class. In Lutheran tradition, we have either a 2 or a 3 year program. Mine was 3. So there was a lot of learning about the liturgy and all that kind of formal stuff. But probably what was the most significant thing for me was the year they did the play called The Terrible Meek. And it was the story of Jesus at the cross with Mary, his mother, the Roman soldier who put the spear in the side, and the captain who gave the order. So I was chosen to play the Mary role. And I know that was really intense because I spent a lot of time praying and seeking to understand what she might have felt like there at the foot of the cross. And there, too, was a more personal kind of experience than I think is common for a lot of people. After that, I'm thinking, well, okay, then we just have high school involved in orchestra, German, modern dance. I'd been doing ballet classes since I was in 1st grade. All of those things come together in one way or another now. I was valedictorian of my class. I went to college in River Falls, Wisconsin, as a music therapy major. That's where I met Bob in judo club. I decided it would be good to learn some self-defense skills, and he was one of the teachers there. We were married in my 2nd year and his last year of college when he was ready to graduate. We lost our first child, who was born 3 months premature and lived 10 weeks. And we learned many, many years later it was related to a sulfa medication that I had been given that I didn't realize was sulfa until after I had used it a couple of times, although they didn't really want to acknowledge that right away. So that was a really, really difficult time of depression and despair, feeling like, is there anything worse that can happen than losing your child? And wondering, so what else is there after that? And I know that one of the things that really did help me was my friend's mother saying, maybe this happened to you so that you can help other people. And that gave me something to hang on to. I didn't really feel like going back to school right away, so I worked for a little while, typed insurance company papers or something. Then Bob's work took us into Minnesota, and I finished my college years at Southwest State University. It was a college then, now it's a university. A bachelor's in sociology with a music minor. And then Bob's work took us back to Wisconsin, where he was servicing and later installing milking systems. And I worked at the Social Security Administration and then as the local hospital social worker. We were both involved in JCs and JSETs, community service organization type things. And we were both involved in the community. I was on the library board and he was on the senior center board. In 1980, in October, our eldest daughter was born, 2 months premature. They were able to hold off her birth for 2 days. I was sent down to Madison, Wisconsin, which is about 2 hours. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the medication that they used to stop the labor because they wanted to give her lungs time to develop, was so potent that it could actually stop your heart too. So they had to have a crash cart right there every time they used that medication for me. Bob was an EMT for the local ambulance in the town we lived in at that time. And we had arranged a deal. When the time came that they were finally going to let the labor progress, 48 hours had passed, then they were going to call Bob on the EMT pager because he was out working and let him know that he should come to Madison. But they made a mistake and they put it on the county-wide pager. So everybody in the county knew that I was in Madison about to give birth with a difficult pregnancy. And he always says there were so many phone calls telling him, Bob, you got to get to the hospital, because that was before cell phone days. I know that I felt enveloped in the hand of God. I've never felt so protected in the midst of such a dangerous situation. Very, very protected, which was a joy in that process. So Karen was hospitalized for 2 months in Madison, about 2 hours away from where we lived. When she did finally come home, then I began graduate school in social work part-time. Over the course of those next few years, I helped develop 2 domestic violence programs. I did some social work internship in hospice and oncology, as well as in marriage and family and alcohol and drug abuse counseling. And my master's thesis was on pet therapy. So all the different things that has to do with trauma and bonding. Pets help people recover when they can't manage people. You can handle a dog with the dog loves you as long as you feed them, right? So you can handle that when you can't handle people.
Barb, I'm curious, when you went to college, you were studying in the field of music. How did you make this transition to what would be the broad range, social work or?
It was music therapy. Music therapy was pretty new at the time, but I was a pre-music therapy major. Music has always been a joyful thing for me. I played violin, I do a little piano, a little guitar, recorder, a few things, a little percussion, but I'm not someone whose primary vocation is music. So being able to incorporate music in and find ways to come alongside and help people seemed appropriate to me. Yeah, it seems like a big jump in some ways, but for me it wasn't. Then when I went to Southwest State to finish, they didn't have a major like that, so I ended up with a sociology major and then the music minor. But again, God found a way to use all of that as well. No matter everything I was taught in those years, there's a lot of mental health, psychological things, mind, will, and emotions stuff. A lot of it I have since pretty much thrown away because I don't think it was terribly valuable. But still, it was an influence. And yet I can say that I always knew under everything I was learning, I always had a sort of an undertone sense of, but God. Always underneath everything, there's, but God. He's always there underneath it all, which was good because then in October of 1981, Bob nearly died in a car accident. Our daughter was just shy of 1 year old, and he was hospitalized for 2 months at a hospital 2 hours away in the other direction. So I went back and forth from the hospital there. It was the same city as where I was doing my schooling. And then there was about a year of recovery for him with that too. About that time, as I was nearing finishing the graduate school in 1983, a friend introduced me to Constance Cumby's book, The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. Did you ever come up with that one years ago?
No, I'm not familiar with that particular book, but I think about the same time, I was looking into other books that sounded warning sirens about New Age occultic practices and how they'd crept into the popular culture. So I'm assuming that Comey's book did the same thing.
Yes, she is. I think she's still with us. She's a Christian attorney, and she started being alarmed at what she was seeing. And I mean, my friend brought it to me, and I said, oh, well, it's probably not that bad, just calm down. And then I read it, and then I was all upset and on the ceiling and went to everybody that I trusted to say, what is going on here? Do you think this is right? Because she was talking about end times. She was talking about Antichrist showing up. She was talking about the use of technology, holograms, projecting images, being able to manipulate people's minds, all these kinds of things. And it scared me. And right around that time, then I just had a sense, not words, but I had a sense that God was going to ask something of me that had to do with the end times. And all I knew was it terrified me. So I kind of did the stick your fingers in your ears and hum a lot. I don't want to hear this. I call it my Jonah years probably about almost 3 years, I think, just trying to not know and not hear and not know what was going on there. During that time, I went and did intoxicated driver assessments in a county mental health clinic, and then I provided intensive outpatient treatment for alcohol and drug abuse when Bob began to apply for the state of Wisconsin and work for them as a food inspector. It was during those years at the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Agency that I met my first witch among my clients. Now, she was not one who wanted to get out of witchcraft. She was very happy with what she was doing. She was promoting astrology as a way to manage stress, which I thought was a little strange. But she was telling me, oh, well, there are Christians who are supportive of this. And I didn't believe it. For a long time, though, I did have a little candle she brought me, a pink glass with a blue candle in it. And she said it was because she saw my aura. Aura is the colors that are projected around a body. And she said that she could see that my aura was generally peaceful, but there was a lot of agitation on the edges. So she thought it was from the chaos from my clients. So she brought me this candle to burn and get the red out of my aura. I never did that, but I thought it was an interesting concept, to say the least. I had a coworker there who read tarot cards, and she kept wanting to lay the cards out and read them for me. And I kept saying, no, that's not something I'm involved in, or anything I would want to have anything to do with.
Here's an original song by Deborah Pagel of Set Apart Ministries. She sings, Yahweh is Calling You Now. You can find more of Deborah's music at setapartministries.org.
He that overcometh inherits the earth. He'll rule with Yahushua, a gift to his heirs. So worship him, Yahweh is calling you. Worship him, Yahweh is calling you now. He sent his Son to show everyone how we should live and learn to forgive. He shows favor to me, his bride I will be. He tells me that I am a child of the King. I'll worship him, Yahweh is calling me. Worship him, Yahweh is calling me now. Marvelous and great are all his works, righteous and true are all his ways. So worship him, Yahweh is calling you. Worship him, Yahweh is calling me. Worship him, Yahweh is calling us now.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Midrash portion of Reunion Roadmap, and got some good things to talk about rather today, and not to waste time getting into it. But so this is David Jones with you today, and Barry Phillips is on the other end of this microphone. Shalom, Barry.
Shalom, David.
Got some neat things to get into. I've been reading recently Parsha Shmini, which is in Leviticus or Vayikra, chapters 9 through 9, 10, 11, and so we're talking about an eighth day. You know, this portion starts off of the eighth day, and in the eighth day. So what happens on the eighth day? What's the big deal? I mean, heaven and earth was created in 6 days, rested on the seventh. He stopped creating on the seventh, and so we get to the eighth day. Well, I think that's a new beginning. It's a new part of creation. It's a new thing that the Father is wanting us to walk in and to step into, and you know, it's like, so if Adam was created on the sixth day, the first full day he experienced was Shabbat, and so then we have the next day of the week, the first day of the week. You know, it's like the new cycle begins. So that's the eighth day, and the priesthood was set in order on the eighth day. So they went through 7 days of consecration, purification, they went through a time of training, a time to prepare, and then they go into the eighth day. And I think we even have the idea of the eighth symbolizing this piece of eternity that we get. And I mean, mathematically, you know, the symbol for infinity, it's like an 8, a number 8. And so I think we see some pretty interesting things that we kind of have an idea of, even if we've never read the scripture. But when we do, how much more real do some of these things, you know, do we come to see these things? So eternity, it's hard to grasp eternity. We have a beginning, we have an end. But the Father is telling us here, right now, to prepare for the eighth day. So how do we do that if we don't know what to expect? So the Father is giving us this time of preparation. We see patterns, if you will. I'll kind of set this up, and I'll let you go for this, because I know you've got some good stuff here. But we see patterns for this. We have 6 days we work, and the sixth day is a time of preparation to enter into the seventh day.
Correct.
And so I believe this concept holds over and for the eighth day as well. If we don't have a time of preparation, we truly will not enter into what comes. You know, I mean, even in the natural, if we have a job to do, there are certain things you need to know to do your job. So there's a time of preparation for anything that we do. So how do we prepare in this 6 days for the seventh, but then looking forward from the seventh to the eighth? There's a lot of things we can go in there, Barry, and I'm if I go, I'm just going to be rambling. What do you think?
Well, it's one of my favorite topics, David, is to discuss this eighth day scenario. I see indicators of it frequently throughout the Torah. We have circumcision that is offered or performed on the eighth day. We have Shavuot, and also we have the Yovel that is on the 50th day. And in a strange Hebraic sense of mathematics, 8 equals 50. I've shared that with some folks, and they just kind of look at me like, do what?
Yeah, but it's like Common Core math. It's new math, right?
Yeah. Well, it's Torah math is the way it works. And the formula is this. As you said, we've been given 6 days to work, a seventh day to enter into his rest. The natural realm, the physical realm that you and I interact with regularly, is on a 7-day basis. So anything that is a cycle of 7 is natural realm. When you go to the 8th day, it's 1 day beyond the natural realm, or we're now talking about the spiritual realm. So circumcision is a practice or a covenant sign that indicates that the natural realm son is a participant in a supernatural realm covenant. The covenant that was given to Abraham did not originate in this realm. It originated from the heavenly, was presented to him, and though we walk in it in this physical realm, it has physical and spiritual realm ramifications. So when a male son is circumcised on the 8th day, he is marked for the day beyond, or the realm beyond. He enters into a covenant that did not originate in this realm. When we count 7 cycles of 7 to come to 49 days, we add one more day, the 50th day, and we come to Shavuot. So for 7 sevens, we've been calculating physical realm need and dealing with physical realm stuff as it occurs in our lives in order to be prepared for an event that originates in the spiritual realm. The outpouring of the Ruach HaKodesh, the giving of the Torah, and how that affects us. It originates in the spiritual realm, but it affects us greatly in the realm that we walk in daily. The same goes for the Yovel, 7 cycles of 7 years. Then the 50th day, or 50th year, the Yovel, the Jubilee, it has liberty, redemption, restoration. These are not physical realm commodities. They originate in the spiritual realm, but they present themselves in this realm. So, David, that brings us then to the 7th day, the 7,000th year and beyond, the day of Messiah. Messiah's kingdom is coming to this realm. It is to be, it's not a time you and I will be floating on clouds and playing harps and eating grapes. We are going to be involved in a world economy. We are going to live in this earth. We're going to function in this earth as human beings, perhaps with a different makeup in our bodies. We're going to be rejuvenated, regenerated, resurrected. It's going to be a wild and wonderful time in the kingdom of the Messiah. But it's going to take us 1,000 years of the day of Messiah to prepare us to effectively enter into the 8th day, the Olam Haba, the world that is yet to come. Once you get on this track and you start thinking about how this all works, it fascinates me. And Yah is teaching us, be faithful, work 6 days, rest on the 7th. If we fail to rest on the 7th or embrace the 7th day correctly, we're never going to be qualified to enter into the 8th day. You got to take care of one realm before you can get into another.
That's
now, I don't know whether I clarified anything or just muddied the water, but there you are.
8 equals 50. That's all you need to know. 8.
That's all you need to know.
We're so focused on what we need for right here, right now. We get up in the morning. The things are our routine, the things we have to do, pay the bills and the family and the kids, and we get involved in the things we need in this life. And if we're not careful, that can cause us to neglect what the Father is wanting us to prepare, the truly important things. I mean, everything that we see here will go away, but the things that are eternal are the things that at this point we don't see. And these are the things that are important. These are the things we need to tend to. The kingdom not just is coming, but is here. Yeshua says, the kingdom is at hand, al yad, at hand, right here, right now. But we see it not with our eyes. We experience it. And so how do we learn to bring the kingdom here and to start to show this piece of eternity, start to show this 8th day right here, right now? I think we get involved in like a Mark chapter 4, the sower sowing the seeds and it goes in the different types of ground. Well, one of those types of ground, it was the cares of this world, the cares of this life choke out the seed.
Yes.
And it's not just the pursuit of these things, making, wealth an idol kind of a thing. It's just in general, just the cares of this world, the cares of this life, just the things that you need. If we're faithful to follow the Father's plan, we work 6 days, but then we stop and we enter into this little peace that the Father is wanting us to just put everything else aside and have a relationship with Him, focus on Him, fellowship with one another, joining with each other. I believe this is a preparation of sorts as well. Because in the 6 days we're preparing what we need, and the seventh day let's enjoy what we have prepared for, as well as that in and of itself is a preparation. Learning to rely on the Father, learning to trust Him in the things that He said. We want to focus on life and the problems of life, and He wants us to focus on the journey of life and the solution, the giver of life. So we focus on the Shabbat on the seventh day, but that leads us into, okay, now we're here, and now we're rejuvenated and refreshed, and now we're ready to enter into this next season, which has no end. Like Sukkot.
Yeah. If we think about time and space are physical realm commodities. They help define our borders, our boundaries. We know that there's a certain order to be anticipated 24 hours in a day. We understand limitations of space. We have physical boundaries. We have the laws of gravity, and all of that is about physical realm law. In the heavenlies, at the throne of the Most High, time and space do not exist. Yah is not wearing a wristwatch. The messengers of Yah around His throne are not looking at a clock on the wall trying to determine what time it is. It is timelessness. It is without boundaries, if you will. There's no time and space restrictions. In the eighth day, time and space very well may cease to exist for us. I mean, if we are in the eighth day, who cares what time it is? It's endless. There are no time restrictions. If time is suspended, will space be suspended as well? In other words, will we cease to operate by physical boundaries? We see at the end of the book of Revelation this magnificent golden city with foundations beyond anything the world has ever understood or can comprehend even now, coming from the heavenlies to be placed upon the earth. And the righteous live in this place. But are we going to be limited by physical boundaries? Is it not possible that we can move from one location to another instantly because time and space have been suspended for us? It's going to be a magnificent world. It's going to be unlike anything that we've ever seen or known to this point. As Rav Shaul says, eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, and neither has it entered into the heart of man the things that Yah has laid up in store for us. Not something to be dreaded, but something to be longed for, yearned for. And we enter into that by being faithful to what's right in front of us. We are called right now to be faithful in the realm that we are in, to anticipate the coming of the kingdom in the seventh day. But oh boy, that eighth day. One last thought here. Why is the kingdom era 1,000 years? It may take 1,000 years to get us to the point where we can finally enter into the eighth day. We're not ready for it yet.
Again, there's more time of preparation, isn't it? And these times we have, I say, let's be faithful to what the Father's given us right here in front of us right now.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things we can speculate on, but we've got enough to keep us busy. Let's prepare for this seventh day, and God will be faithful to prepare us for the eighth day.
That He will. That He will.
So I guess until next time, shalom everybody, and shalom Barry.
Shalom, David. Great to be with you again.
Solomon Lopez sings Rebuild from his album Born at Home Sessions Volume 1, available at Hebraism.org.
Rebuild us soon and in our days. Rebuild us soon and in our days. Oh, rebuild Yerushalayim and rebuild Ephraim. Oh, rebuild Yehuda and all of Israel. Oh, rebuild us soon and in our days. Oh, in your mercy you rebuild us. Rebuild us soon and in our days.
Well, we hope you enjoyed Solomon Lopez singing Rebuild. That's one of my favorite songs of his. Now, what we have heard from him, what we heard from Deborah Pagel earlier, and from Barb and Bob Klika, and then, of course, from Barry Phillips and David Jones, is something that, Stefania, I don't know that I got it in the church. Because as our friend Hanoch Young has said, we focus on the wedding feast, when our Messiah comes back and takes his bride. But we should be looking at the marriage, which comes after that feast, because according to the scriptures, we got 1,000 years of messianic kingdom to live through. And what I think, and tell me your thoughts on this, particularly with what Barry and David had shared about the 8th day, is we need to look at this end of days and the wedding feast as the transition to get into the actual marriage, the 8th day, the 1,000 years. What do you think?
We have so many 7-day observances or groups of sevens to observe that prepare us. We have to embrace that 7 in our lives, as we know by the feast days. Okay, so we go to Shabbat. That is the ultimate preparation right there. Learning how to rest, knowing to take that 7th day that he has said to rest on to prepare us for that 8th day. And then, of course, we have the cycle that was mentioned in the Midrash, Shavuot. You have 7 sets of 7s, and the final day is like an 8th day. Okay, then you get to one that they didn't mention, which was actually, I'll add this to the whole thing, is Sukkot. So you have 7s, a set of 7, and then the end, we treat it as if it's part of Sukkot, but it actually isn't. It's unto itself, and we could call that an 8th day. And if we looked at Sukkot as time, where that 8th one is the final preparation, and it's kind of interesting, that 7th day of Sukkot there is a kind of a working day. It's not, but then the 8th day is the time of a rest. When we look at it as the millennial kingdom, is the time of that we're working out our salvation with fear and trembling, so that we'll be that spotless bride, and then to prepare us for the 8th day.
Exactly. And as we'll hear in the continuing segments of the Klika's interview, all of it is, we're going through the preparation right now.
Exactly.
Well, that will do it for this edition of Reunion Roadmap. Thank you all for listening. We will be back again with a new show, so please join us then.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.